from some aunties, and it is not a norm. However, I have done my part in explaining that I will practice polygamy one day, many years ago, before our marriage, and she acknowledged it. May I ask, what am I to do in this situation? I need help, as this might either lead to divorce or heated argument. Question is asking about the issue of polygamy. The first thing we have to understand what is the ruling in polygamy in Islam. In Islam it is mubah. When it comes to polygamy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, mentioned it in the Quran, فَانْكِهُ مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَعَ. Marry from women who are good in their nature and character. You can marry 2, 3 or 4. So this is any polygamy in Islam, which is permissible. But of course, after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, if you are unable to have any justice, if you do not have the ability to do justice to all of them, if you engage in polygamy, فَوَاحِدَةً. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَإِن لَمْ تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً. If you do not have the ability to do adl, justice. Justice here refers to, number one, is nafaqah. So when a person who wants to engage in polygamy, so he has to understand that nafaqah is compulsory. So now if a person has 2 wives, it is compulsory upon him to provide for the first wife and now the second wife. And likewise, all other things relating to nafaqah. It is compulsory to provide housing, tamam. It is compulsory to provide any clothing. Nafaqah falls into all these categories. And likewise, we have something that is called al-qism. Al-qism, meaning to spend the night. To spend the night with the first wife, spend the night with the second wife. So there must be this shift, a rotating shift, that is based on justice. Now, be with the first wife at the same time as the second wife. So if a person has the capacity to do all these things, then it is permissible for him to engage in polygamy, to marry more than one. And in certain situations, it is recommended. It can be recommended. How recommended? Because you see nowadays, for example, there are women who are in need of marriage, single mothers, and we have a lot of cases, single mothers, the husband pass away, and she is burdened with children, 2 children or 3 children, for example, or many children. Likewise, divorcee and women who are not in any form of marriage, who are in need of marriage and need to sustain themselves, for example. So Islam gives this alternative, just in case that in a community there are need for a man to marry more than one because of the increase in the number of women in the society, and which is rampant today in many societies. The numbers of women is greater than the number of men. We find it in the Middle East, for example, especially in the countries that are engaged in war. Countries that are engaged in war, because of the casualties normally comes from men. So there is an influx of women in the society. So if we were to be strict by saying that men should only marry one woman, then what about the other women who are unable to get married? How are they able to fulfill their needs? Needs not only in sexual desires, but needs in terms of nafaqah, needs in terms of housing. Some people might argue that nowadays there are women who are independent and who have the career and so on and so forth. But that is not the thing that is the norm in many countries. Maybe we look at the perspective in Singapore, for example, one can argue a woman can become independent, but despite that, if she is a divorcee or she is a single mother, for example, she also in need of getting married for someone to take care of her, for example, emotionally, psychologically, and her children, to provide for her on certain things. So this is needed. Polygamy is something that is needed in societies, without doubt. So we find this is the wisdom behind why Islam encourage polygamy and make it permissible. But of course, Islam, is what I mentioned earlier, put in the conditions. As long as a person is able, has the capacity in terms of financially, and also in terms of the health, and he's able to provide. Even if he marry for example, he's able to provide, he's able to bring up, nurture the children in a good way, for example. Then for people like this, it is encouraged. And it is one of the ways of helping the community. What usually happens when parents divorce with children and so on, there is always these problems of under nurture that is happening to children. And likewise, women who are burdened with her situation, if she is not working or she is sick, for example, and she doesn't have anyone to take care of her, and so on and so forth. So there are many reasons that we can speak about on the benefits of polygamy. Some people might be saying, but if a person marry more than one, then he will not be able to take care and all these things. So as what we mentioned, it all depends on the person who does this polygamy. On the person. If a person, for example, does not have the capacity at all, to marry any more than one, then he cannot marry. So everything goes back to the situation. So this is more of a situational. But in terms of ruling, the basis in Islam, of course, it is permissible, it is encouraged, and it is a way of helping the community, as what we mentioned. So now we go back to this question. So the question is asking about polygamy. So this person has the intention of polygamy, but the wife deny. So now we ask the question: does the wife has the right to deny the husband for marrying more than one? The wife has no right. The wife has no right. So this is the situation of the husband. Does the husband has the capacity and the means to marry any more than one? If the husband has the capacities, then he is entitled to marry any more than one. And this is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question is asking that the wife is influenced from some aunties, as it is not a norm. However, he said, I've done my part in explaining and I practice polygamy one day many years before our marriage, and she acknowledged it. May I ask, what am I to do in this situation? So what you have to do is to explain to your wife. To explain to the wife, number one, the perspective of Islam. Number two, the situations. And your situation, for example, you know your situation better. And likewise, the situation of the community, and the situation of the person whom you are getting married to. So all these things comes into play in explaining all of these situations to the wife, in a hope that she will understand and come into a common understanding, so you don't have any issues after the marriage. So this is the best way, to explain, because a lot of our women are ignorant. Out of due respect, I'm not saying all our women are ignorant, but a lot of them are ignorant. A lot of men and women in our society, which is rampant and which is a norm, that they don't seek knowledge. They don't seek knowledge the right way. Today, we ask how many people know about the fiqh of marriage? How many people have gone through a book in fiqh on the laws of marriage? Maybe in 100, maybe we can find maybe one. If we are lucky, in 100, if you speak to 100 people in the streets of Singapore, and especially the young people, for example, and you ask them the question, have they studied fiqh of marriage? And you ask any people who are, whether they are already married or they are going to engage in marriage, ask them, have they studied? Do they understand about the rulings in Islam and with regards to marriage? Do they understand the conditions of polygamy? Do they? Or are they any people who are just influenced by the Western media? Because the Western media is engaging in what you call it, is some Western media engaging in attacks again some practices of Islam, and polygamy is one of them. Under the banner of a man, because of his sexual desire, that he wants to get more sexual fantasies, and by marrying, they only look at one aspect, that is the sexual aspect, and blaming the Muslim men of being sexual addicts, and that and likewise linking up to the virgins in Jannah and all these things. So are we Muslims that ignorant to be influenced by this kind of nonsensical arguments? that people are putting forth. Nowadays, we live in society where people can have 10 girlfriends and nobody any speak about it. There are people in the internet and they are proud. They are proud. They have 5, 6. They show in Instagram, in YouTube. I can name any of few names which are famous on social media. So they are teaching any the youth that they are enjoying any life and having any all these sexual any pleasures and with all these girls, more than 4. But all this is based on haram any relationship any because they don't abide any by any religion. Tamam. But this is seen any as okay. You can have any a girlfriend, but when a person any wants any to have engaged in a halal marriage to save any certain situations, any to provide any for certain people any who are in need, and to make a betterment in the society by nurturing any children, having any more children, any for people any who possess any that capacity. Why are we against any all these things? So this is any everything any goes back any to the lack any of knowledge, and number 2, lack of iman. Lack of iman. People any who have deep any faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with profound any understanding of Islam, then they are able any to understand the situation that we are living any today. But of course, all these things any I mentioned are for people any who possess the capacity any to get married, more than one. But again, if people any who don't have the capacity, of course, any I will not any encourage any polygamy. So what I'm trying to say is that we have any to look at the situation holistically, and we should not any be only influenced any by the Western any media, by the Western any literature any who are attacking any Islam any from day one, while we are ignorant any about our Islamic any tradition. So this is any the point that I'm trying to say. So again, it is important any to be educated, yani in Islam, to understand the wisdoms any behind the Sharia, to understand the wisdoms any behind why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permit this, and what are the rewards. Yani if a wife bears with this situation, will she be rewarded by Allah? Of course, and she be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because she is also yani in this helping out yani of the other party. Now, so this is my advice. I need to engage and to explain. So this question is asking, I need help, as this might either lead to divorce or heated argument. So what is important any for you is for you to look any at your situation and assess any your situation any with wisdom. So there is no need any to be in a haste. So look any at your situation and make any comparison and look at what is better any for you and for your future, for your deen, for your dunya. Then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yani for guidance. Inshallah, Allah yani will give you any a way out any towards it. The next question is asking, Assalamu alaikum. We all know that if a Muslim stole from another Muslim and get away with it, he will get justice in the afterlife. My question is, if a non-Muslim stole a big sum of money from me and got away with it, will it get justice in the afterlife? The answer is yes. It doesn't matter whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim. Allah is just. If a Muslim commit any crimes, stealing any from others, he will be reckoned in Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the afterlife. If a non-Muslim does any the same thing, he will also be reckoned in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Both any Muslims and non-Muslims, for whatever sins any that they have done, they will be reckoned in the hereafter. They will be reckoned in the hereafter. But of course, there is a difference between Muslim and non-Muslim with regards to Iman. Since the fact that the Muslim is a person who has faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his punishment will be temporal. His punishment in the hereafter will be temporal, because after some time he will be made to enter the Jannah if he dies in the state of a Muslim. But not if a person dies in the state of a non-Muslim. The punishment is permanent, whereas the punishment of a Muslim is temporal, where he will be made to enter the Jannah. May Allah bless us with taufiq and hidayah. Assalamualaikum Ustaz. Waalaikumsalam. Soalan saya, kalau isteri saya bekerja di office, memang kerja perlukan dia pakai makeup ringan, adakah dia berdosa? Patutkah saya halang kerja dia berhadapan dengan orang? Jadi soalan ini menanyakan seorang isteri pada orang yang menanya ini bekerja di office dan dia kena memakai makeup ini yang ringan. Adakah yang ini dia berdosa? Sekali lagi, kita nak kena lihat ini kepada keadaan pekerjaannya. Jadi dia bekerja sebagai apa? Kalau dia bekerja ini di office, sebagai admin, sebagai misal. Dia bekerja di office sebagai misal, dan dia memakai yang makeup yang ringan. Maksudnya kalau sekiranya makeup ini bukan berlebih-lebihan yang boleh menarik perhatian orang lelaki, maka dalam keadaan seperti ini tidak ada apa-apa. Tidak ada apa-apa. Yani kita ada banyak yang muslimah bekerja di office, ada bekerja di government office, ada bekerja di private office. Kebanyakan yang muslimah kita misalnya di Singapura, mereka kerja sebagai clerk ataupun kerja sebagai admin, ataupun mereka kerja dalam bahagian HR sebagai misal, dan sebagainya. Jadi kita kena lihat syarikat apa yang dia bekerja di dalamnya. Selagi mana syarikat itu bukan syarikat yang berdagang dengan benda-benda yang diharamkan seperti arak dan sebagainya. Kalau ia berdagang dengan benda-benda yang halal dan dia bekerja di office dan dia memakai makeup ini yang ringan, yang bukan makeup yang berlebihan yang diletakkan di depan front desk untuk layan tetamu, ini semua tidak dibolehkan. Tapi kalau sekiranya dia setakat bekerja di dalam office, ini tidak ada masalah. Tidak ada masalah. Tapi berkenaan dengan makeup ini berlebihan dan juga bergaul banyak dengan lelaki, ini lebih afdal kita mengatakan, lebih afdal kita elakkan. Kita mengatakan kepada kita punya isteri, kerja di department lain. Jangan bekerja dengan dalam keadaan yang mana dia perlu berhadapan dengan orang lelaki dan sebagainya. Lepas itu perlu memakai sejenis pakaian untuk supaya orang melihatnya dalam keadaan apa kita mengatakan cantik dan sebagainya. Ini semua sebagai seorang mukmin kita mengelakkan. Tetapi soalan balik kepada soalan, kalau setakat bekerja dalam office, bekerja filing dan sebagainya, maka ini tidak ada masalah di dalamnya, selagi mana dia jaga auratnya, jaga pergaulan, elakkan daripada duduk bersama lelaki yang ajnabi tanpa keuzuran, tanpa sebab. Begitu juga dalam perbualan pun nak kena jaga. Ini semua adalah daripada adab-adab ini, adab-adab Islam yang wajib bagi seorang muslimah untuk dia berjaga apabila dia bekerja dan dia berhadapan dengan orang di luar. Assalamualaikum Ustaz, saya nak bertanya tentang hak hukum rumah, hak rumah dan hukum faraid. Awal bapa telah beli rumah di atas nama bapa, ibu dan adik saya. Bapa telah membayar 15,000. Adik pula telah menggunakan semua wang CPF untuk membayar pendahuluan bulanan dan juga menambah wang tunai untuk bulanan. Ibu tidak bekerja dan tidak membayar apa-apa. Apabila rumah dijual, adakah hak rumah itu jatuh sepenuhnya kepada adik ataupun wang tunai hasil penjualan perlu dibagi-bagikan menurut faraid bagi kesemua 5 adik-beradik dan juga ibu? Harap Ustaz dapat memberikan penjelasan. Ini berkenaan dengan hukum faraid. Apabila seorang meninggal dunia, maka harta peninggalannya balik kepada hukum faraid. Harta peninggalannya balik kepada hukum faraid. Maka soalan ini, bapanya telah membeli rumah. Bapanya telah membeli rumah. Dan bapa membayar 15,000. Di sini kita mengatakan, kalau sekiranya bapanya yang membeli rumah tersebut dan bapanya yang membayar di rumah tersebut, maka rumah itu adalah rumah bapanya. Berkenaan dengan nama ini, dia tidak masuk milik. Dia setakat undang-undang. Sebab rumah di Singapura, kalau kita nak beli rumah, mesti ada 2 nama ke 3 nama. Jadi soalan ini kita menanyakan, rumah ini milik siapa? Rumah ini milik siapa? Kalau sekiranya rumah ini dimiliki oleh 2 orang dan kedua-duanya membelinya, maksudnya membayar bagi rumah tersebut, ini kita mengatakan ada syarikah. Jadi satu orang ini memiliki separuh, lagi satu orang memiliki separuh. Tapi kalau sekiranya rumah ini kesemuanya milik ini oleh bapanya, dan bapanya meninggal dunia, dan adik-beradik dan mak setakat nama sahaja, ini kita mengatakan diwajibkan faraid. Wajib anak-anak menggunakan hasil penjualan rumah tersebut dan membagikan faraid kepada yang lain. Maka dalam keadaan seperti ini tidak dibolehkan bagi adiknya untuk mengambil di rumah sebab nama dia dekat dalam sana. Melainkan kalau sekiranya dia mengatakan, saya juga contribute, saya juga bayar rumah. Kita mengatakan berapa banyak dibayar. Tolak bahagian yang dibayar, berapakah bapanya milik daripada rumah tersebut. Maka milik daripada bapanya diberikan faraid. Jadi keadaan yang pertama adalah kalau kita mengatakan kesemua flat ini milik bapanya, maka khalas kita mengatakan ini kesemuanya faraid. Jadi milik rumah ini adalah milik ini faraid, dibagikan faraid kepada ahli waris. Yang kedua, kalau sekiranya orang yang ada namanya bersama bapanya juga ada contribute, maka kita tolak yang ini contribution mereka. Dan selepas itu apa kita mengatakan, kita membagikan yang ini kepada faraid. Baik. Jadi ini adalah hukumnya. Jadi kembali ini kepada soalan ini, saya mungkin kurang faham sikit soalan ini sebab soalan ini mengatakan bapanya telah membayar 15,000, adik pula telah menggunakan semua wang CPF untuk membayar pendahuluan bulanan dan juga menambah wang tunai untuk bulanan. Maka di sini keadaan yang kedua, yakni adiknya juga membayar bagi rumah tersebut. Baik, dalam keadaan seperti ini maka adiknya ada hak di atas ini rumah tersebut juga. Sebab dia juga yang ini membuat dia punya pembayaran. Jadi apabila rumah ini dia jual di mana, adakah hak rumah itu jatuh sepenuhnya kepada adik ataupun wang tunai hasil penjualan perlu dibagikan bahagian mengikut faraid kepada semua lima adik-beradik dan juga ibu. Jadi di sini seperti mana saya mengatakan tadi, kita menanyakan soalan adiknya mengeluarkan berapa banyak bagi rumah tersebut, maka kita tolak bahagian duit yang dikeluarkan oleh adiknya untuk kita mengetahui berapakah bahagian dimiliki oleh bapanya. Berapakah bahagian yang dimiliki oleh bapanya. Ini yang kita mengatakan faraid. Sebab balik ini kepada faraid, kita membicarakan tentang berapakah wang yang dimiliki oleh si mati apabila dia meninggal dunia. Jadi rumah ini kita dapat mengetahuinya apabila kita menolak yang bahagian yang dibayar yang oleh adiknya. Maksudnya selain yang bahagian yang dibayar oleh adiknya, kesemuanya dibayar oleh bapanya. Jadi kita nak kena mengetahui berapa banyak dimiliki yang oleh bapanya daripada rumah tersebut. Ini yang bagi ini faraid. Manakala milik yang bagi adiknya hanya dimiliki dia punya contribution bagi rumah tersebut. Tetapi kalau sekiranya kita mengatakan bapa hanya bayar 15,000, khalas, dia setakat letak nama dia bayar 15,000, maka 15,000 kita mengatakan hasil daripada yang di rumah yang ini tersebut, maka 15,000 yang ini kita membagikan yang ini kepada faraid. Jadi apa yang saya ingin mengatakan di sini adalah kita nak kena memastikan berapa dimiliki oleh bapa daripada rumah tersebut. Berapa percentage ini sebagai misal. Nah, kalau adik nak rumah tersebut, maka dia bagi bahagian bapanya kepada yang lain. Maka dia mengambil dari rumah tersebut dan bahagian yang bapanya dia memberikan faraid ini kepada ahli waris yang lain termasuk ini dirinya. Wallahu a'lam bissawab. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.